Alex had always imagined life in a quiet neighborhood as peaceful. When he and Mia first drove through the streets of their new community, they felt a sense of calm wash over them. The houses were tidy, the lawns neatly trimmed, and the sidewalks clean. There was a sense of order that seemed comforting after the chaos of the city they had left behind. The neighborhood had everything they wanted: safety, quiet, and a friendly environment where people seemed to care about one another. It felt like the perfect place to start a new chapter in their lives. The couple had spent weeks searching for the right home. They wanted a place where Mia could relax, and Alex could focus on his work without the distractions of city life. When they finally found the house, it felt like fate. It had a small garden, a cozy porch, and enough space for both of them to feel at home. Moving in was exhausting but exciting. Boxes were stacked in every corner, furniture was slowly arranged, and little by little the house began to feel like theirs. At first, everything seemed perfect. Their neighbors waved politely as they carried in boxes. A few introduced themselves and offered tips about the community, local grocery stores, and the nearby park. Life felt predictable in a good way, and that was comforting to Alex and Mia. The Homeowners Association, or HOA as it was called, seemed just as friendly. They sent a welcome packet with rules about maintaining lawns, parking regulations, and neighborhood standards. Alex and Mia read through it carefully, wanting to follow every guideline and avoid any issues. But it didn't take long for things to shift. What started as minor annoyances soon became a source of stress. Alex noticed the first warning letter slipped under the door one afternoon. It complained about a garden hose that had been left on the lawn for too long. He laughed at first. It seemed ridiculous to be fined for something so small. Mia tried to reassure him. "Maybe they just want everyone to follow the rules," she said, smiling gently. But there was an underlying tension in her voice that Alex didn't miss. Soon the letters became more frequent. One warned about a mailbox that was slightly crooked. Another mentioned the angle of the driveway. It was always something, and the tone was never friendly. The messages carried an implied threat, as if failure to comply could result in severe consequences. Alex began to feel a knot in his stomach every time he checked the mail. What had seemed like a calm, orderly neighborhood now felt suffocating. The real trouble began when Mia experienced the first direct confrontation. She had gone out to pick up groceries, returning in the late afternoon when the sun was beginning to set. As she approached the driveway, two men in plain clothes, carrying themselves like officers, stepped out from behind a bush. They identified themselves as HOA security. Their manner was stern, almost aggressive. "Ma'am," one of them said, "we need to talk about your husband and the violations on this property." Mia froze. She hadn't expected anyone to be waiting. She stammered, trying to explain that she was just coming home from the store. But the men didn't seem interested in listening. They questioned her about Alex's whereabouts, his activities, and whether he had been following HOA rules. The conversation felt threatening. Mia's hands shook slightly, and she felt a wave of fear she hadn't experienced in years. She realized that this wasn't a friendly neighborhood oversight anymore. It was intimidation. When she finally got inside, her face pale and her voice trembling, Alex was shocked. He tried to calm her, holding her close and listening as she explained every detail. His heart pounded with a mix of anger and worry. How could anyone feel unsafe in their own home? He promised himself that he would protect Mia, but he also knew that confrontation wouldn't solve anything yet. He needed a plan. Alex began keeping a detailed record of every interaction with the HOA. He documented every letter, every phone call, and every unexpected visit. He even started recording video when he could. Wanting to have evidence in case the situation escalated, Mia supported him, though she often worried about the stress it caused him. Their evenings were no longer peaceful. They would sit together, reviewing documents and discussing strategies to protect themselves from what was quickly turning into harassment. Friends and neighbors started to notice the tension. Some offered advice. "Don't push too hard," one neighbor said cautiously. "They have a reputation for making life difficult for anyone who questions them." Others were more sympathetic, sharing stories of fines and threats they had received. It became clear that the HOA wasn't just about maintaining order. They seemed to thrive on control and intimidation. The couple tried to remain polite and compliant, attending HOA meetings and asking questions respectfully, but the board members rarely offered clear answers. Instead, they issued more warnings, each one more serious than the last. Alex could see the pattern. The HOA wasn't looking for cooperation. They were testing limits, trying to see how far they could go before a resident snapped. One night, after another tense encounter, Alex sat alone in the living room thinking. He couldn't allow Mia to feel unsafe in their own home. He couldn't ignore the harassment, but he also knew that reacting with anger could make things worse. He needed advice, someone who understood strategy and preparation. He remembered an old friend, David, who had been a Navy SEAL trainer. They hadn't spoken in years, but David's experience with risk management and confidence in high-pressure situations seemed exactly what Alex needed. Mia noticed his concern and asked gently, "Do you think we'll ever be able to feel safe here?" Alex took her hand, squeezing it. "We will," he said, though he wasn't entirely sure yet how. "We just have to be smart about it. We can't let them win by scaring us." As the days went on, the couple began to prepare. They installed additional locks, improved their home security, and kept meticulous records of every HOA interaction. They researched local laws and homeowner rights, learning what the HOA could and could not legally do. Alex felt a growing sense of determination. He wasn't going to let fear dictate their lives. Mia, seeing his resolve, began to regain some of her confidence, but the stress was real. Every time the doorbell rang unexpectedly, or a letter arrived in the mailbox, their hearts would race. The tension affected even simple moments like having dinner or relaxing in the living room. Yet through it all, Alex and Mia clung to each other. They knew that facing the situation together was their best defense. The bond between them grew stronger, forged in the quiet moments of planning and the shared determination to protect their home and each other. Neighbors whispered about the couple's resilience. Some admired it quietly, while others warned that standing up to the HOA could bring more trouble. But Alex and Mia had reached a point where fear was no longer an option. They needed to find a way to reclaim their peace, and they were willing to do whatever it took legally and safely to ensure that their home remained a sanctuary. Little did they know, help was on the way. The introduction of David, the former Navy SEAL trainer, would bring a new level of strategy and confidence that the couple needed. But at this point, the neighborhood tension had already tested their patience, courage, and unity. It was only the beginning of a battle that would challenge them in ways they never imagined, but also reveal a strength within themselves they hadn't known existed. Alex and Mia ended each day reflecting on small victories, no matter how minor. A polite but firm response to an HOA letter felt like a win. A neighbor's quiet support felt like progress. Each step, though small, reminded them that they were not powerless. The intimidation tactics, while unsettling, could be met with preparation, calmness, and strategic action. And so as the sun set over the quiet suburban streets, Alex and Mia held on to hope. Their journey was just beginning, but they were determined to face it together, learning to navigate a world where rules could be weaponized, and courage was the most important shield they had. The first few days after Mia's unsettling encounter with the HOA officers were tense. Alex could see that she was still shaken, her hands trembling slightly whenever the doorbell rang or a car drove slowly past their house. He tried to comfort her, holding her close and reminding her that they were together and that she was safe inside their home. But he knew that the real challenge was just beginning. The HOA wasn't going to stop at threats. They were escalating, testing boundaries, and Alex had to find a way to protect his wife and their home without creating more conflict. The letters began to pile up. Each one followed the same pattern: formal language, warnings about violations, and hints of legal consequences if Alex and Mia failed to comply. There was a tone of authority in every sentence, as if the HOA had the power to control not just their property, but their lives. Alex read each letter carefully, taking notes on the dates, content, and any implied threats. He knew that responding thoughtfully was more effective than reacting out of anger or fear. Mia watched Alex meticulously organize their files, folders of documents, letters, and photographs. She admired his determination but worried about the stress it caused him. "Do you really think keeping all this will help?" she asked one evening. As they sat at the kitchen table surrounded by papers, Alex looked up at her, his expression calm but resolute. "It's not just about keeping records," he said. "It's about having a plan. If they try to intimidate us again, we'll have evidence. We won't be helpless." Despite their careful planning, the intimidation continued. One afternoon, Mia received a phone call from a number she didn't recognize. A man identified himself as part of the HOA's security team and immediately began questioning her about Alex. His tone was aggressive, his words carefully chosen to provoke fear. Mia felt her chest tighten, but she remembered what Alex had told her. Stay calm, speak clearly, and document everything. She took a deep breath and answered politely, asking him to put all concerns in writing. The man hesitated, clearly frustrated that she wasn't reacting as he expected. When the call ended, Mia felt a small sense of relief. She had maintained her composure, and the man had gained nothing from his intimidation. The next challenge came when the HOA sent a group of officers to their property unannounced. Alex had anticipated this, so he stayed close to Mia, ready to handle the situation calmly. When the men arrived, they tried to push their way into the house, claiming they had the authority to inspect for violations. Alex calmly explained that they could not enter without proper notice or a lawful reason. Mia stood beside him, her voice steady and firm. The men tried to escalate, but Alex and Mia remained composed, refusing to react emotionally. After several tense minutes, the men left, visibly frustrated. The couple felt a quiet victory, knowing that they had faced the intimidation without giving in. The emotional strain of these encounters was considerable. Even though Alex and Mia were learning to handle them with composure, the constant stress weighed heavily on their daily lives. Simple activities like grocery shopping, walking in the neighborhood, or having friends over were colored by the possibility of another encounter with the HOA. Alex realized that while preparation and documentation were crucial, they also needed support and guidance from someone who understood strategy and dealing with pressure. It was during this period of heightened tension that Alex remembered David, his old friend who had trained Navy SEALs. David was skilled in strategy, preparation, and handling high-pressure situations. Alex knew that even though the HOA situation wasn't a battlefield, the skills David could teach would help them approach it with confidence and calm authority. He reached out to David, explaining the threats and intimidation they were facing. David listened attentively, asking questions to understand the full scope of the situation. David didn't offer quick fixes or aggressive solutions. Instead, he focused on preparation, awareness, and strategy. He emphasized that the key to handling intimidation was maintaining control over one's own actions and emotions. He explained that fear could be countered with knowledge, calm communication, and careful documentation. Alex felt a sense of relief. Finally, someone understood what they were going through and could guide them through it. Over the next few days, Alex and Mia began to implement some of David's advice. They organized all their documents, including letters, photos, and records of every interaction. They practiced responses to potential scenarios, rehearsing calmly how they would answer aggressive phone calls or unexpected visits. Alex focused on remaining composed and firm, while Mia learned techniques to manage fear and respond confidently. Slowly, the couple began to feel that they were regaining some control over their lives. The neighborhood itself became a subtle factor in their strategy. Alex noticed that neighbors were observing the interactions between the couple and the HOA. Some whispered about how strong Alex and Mia were remaining, while others quietly offered advice or shared their own experiences. This awareness created a sense of solidarity and subtle support. Alex and Mia realized that by handling the situation calmly and strategically, they were not just protecting themselves, they were influencing the neighborhood as a whole. The tension reached a peak when the HOA issued another letter, claiming violations that were either non-existent or minor. This time, Alex and Mia were ready. They carefully reviewed the claims, documented their compliance, and prepared a professional response. They didn't allow anger or frustration to dictate their reply. When the HOA representatives arrived, expecting fear or hesitation, they were met with calm authority. Alex explained the situation clearly, referencing documentation and regulations, while Mia supported him, speaking confidently and calmly. The officers left, again frustrated and powerless. Through these experiences, Alex and Mia learned that intimidation lost its power when met with calm and preparation. They discovered that fear could be managed, and even the most persistent threats could be neutralized with knowledge and composure. Their relationship grew stronger as they faced these challenges together. They celebrated small victories, like a letter being ignored or a visit ending without escalation, and these moments reinforced their confidence and sense of unity. The couple also reflected on the lessons they were learning. They understood that fear and intimidation were often tools used to control others. By documenting interactions, maintaining calm, and responding strategically, they had removed the leverage that the HOA once held over them. They realized that courage wasn't about confrontation. It was about preparation, awareness, and protecting oneself and loved ones with intelligence and composure. Alex and Mia continued to refine their approach. They installed additional security measures, including cameras and improved lighting, to feel safer in their home. They practiced responses to potential scenarios, focusing on clarity, calmness, and assertiveness. Every small adjustment, every rehearsal, added a layer of security and confidence. The couple began to feel that their home was reclaiming its role as a safe and peaceful place. Neighbors noticed the transformation in Alex and Mia. The couple who had once seemed anxious and overwhelmed now moved with quiet confidence. Some residents expressed admiration for their composure, while others began to rethink how they interacted with the HOA. The couple's example subtly encouraged others to handle intimidation with strategy and calm authority, rather than fear or submission. As the weeks went on, Alex and Mia's confidence grew. They began to enjoy daily life again, tending their garden, taking walks, and spending quiet evenings together without the constant cloud of fear. They had learned that even in a challenging situation, preparation and calm strategy could restore control and peace. Their home, once a source of stress, was slowly becoming a sanctuary once more. Through all of this, David remained a guiding presence. He emphasized patience, reminding them that change wouldn't happen overnight, and that the HOA might continue testing boundaries. But as long as Alex and Mia responded with calm authority, the intimidation would lose its power. The couple understood that their strength didn't come from aggression. It came from preparation, unity, and the ability to remain composed in the face of pressure. By the end of Part 2, Alex and Mia had taken significant steps toward reclaiming their lives. They had documented interactions, developed strategies for responding to intimidation, and learned to manage fear with calm confidence. The HOA remained a challenge, but the couple now faced it with preparation, clarity, and unity. They had discovered resilience they didn't know they had, and their home was slowly becoming the safe, peaceful place they had always wanted. The experience taught them that power often lies not in threats or authority, but in calm, strategic action. By staying composed, documenting every detail, and supporting each other, Alex and Mia were no longer powerless. They had turned fear into preparation, uncertainty into clarity, and intimidation into a test of their patience and unity. The journey was far from over, but the couple now faced it with confidence, knowing that together they could handle whatever the HOA tried next. Alex had spent weeks feeling frustrated and helpless. The HOA seemed relentless, and every encounter, every letter, made him more determined but also more anxious. He knew that trying to face them alone could backfire. He needed guidance, someone who could help him think clearly and stay calm under pressure. That's when he remembered David, an old friend from his younger days in the military. David had trained Navy SEALs for years, and Alex knew he understood strategy, patience, and the art of handling tense situations. Calling David felt a little awkward at first. Years had passed since they last spoke. But when Alex explained the situation, David listened quietly, without judgment or interruption. He asked questions, taking note of every detail: the letters, the fines, the encounters at the door, and how Mia had been threatened. David's tone was calm but serious. He didn't need to see the property or meet the HOA members to understand the problem. "This isn't about breaking rules," David said. "It's about intimidation. You've been put in a situation where they think fear will control you." Alex felt a mix of relief and curiosity. Relief that someone understood the gravity of the situation, and curiosity about what David might suggest. David didn't offer quick fixes or aggressive plans. Instead, he focused on preparation and mindset. "You can't control them, but you can control how you respond," he said. "The key is confidence, strategy, and making sure you and Mia feel safe." Over the next few weeks, Alex met with David several times. They didn't just talk, they trained. Not in the sense of fighting, but in preparation. David taught Alex how to assert boundaries without anger, how to communicate clearly and calmly, and how to document every interaction, so that the HOA's intimidation had no power over them. Alex practiced speaking firmly but politely, maintaining eye contact and staying composed even when provoked. Mia joined some of these sessions as well. At first she was nervous. The idea of training felt unnecessary, almost intimidating. But David had a way of teaching that was empowering. He showed her simple steps to increase her confidence, like holding herself with calm authority, knowing her rights, and preparing mental responses to potential threats. Mia learned that safety wasn't about fear or confrontation. It was about awareness and control. One afternoon, David brought over a notebook and a small camera. "Documentation is your best defense," he explained. "Every letter, every visit, every phone call, keep a record. If they try to intimidate you again, you'll have proof. You're turning their power into your evidence." Alex and Mia started keeping detailed logs, taking photos of notices, and even recording video when the HOA tried to approach their property without warning. The more they prepared, the more Alex felt a shift in his mindset. Fear was no longer a constant shadow. He and Mia started discussing possible scenarios calmly, thinking through responses in advance rather than reacting in panic. Even simple things like how Mia would answer the door or how Alex would respond to a threatening letter became exercises in control. They were learning to reclaim their peace. David also emphasized the importance of community perception. "Neighbors notice how you respond," he said. "When they see someone standing calmly, prepared, and respectful, it changes the way the HOA operates. People who rely on intimidation thrive when others react with fear or anger. Take that away and you remove their advantage." Alex realized that part of the plan wasn't just about protecting themselves. It was about sending a message that intimidation wouldn't work. One evening, after a particularly long session, Alex and Mia sat together in the living room. They felt exhausted but strangely empowered. "I feel like we finally have a plan," Mia said, her voice steadier than it had been in weeks. "Before, it felt like we were just waiting for the next attack. Now at least we can face it with some control." Alex nodded, holding her hand. He felt the same way. For the first time since moving into the neighborhood, he felt like they could actually protect themselves without losing their peace of mind. The first real test came sooner than they expected. A week after starting their training with David, 2 HOA officers arrived unannounced at the door. Mia, who had been practicing her responses with David, answered calmly. "Good afternoon," she said politely, holding the door just enough to speak without letting them in. "Can I help you?" The men were taken aback by her composure. They had expected hesitation or fear. Instead, Mia stood confidently, calmly explaining that they could not enter without prior notice or a lawful reason. Alex, standing just behind her, remained quiet but alert, ready to intervene if necessary. The men tried to push, making thinly veiled threats about legal consequences, but Alex and Mia stayed calm. They repeated the facts, documented the interaction, and kept their voices steady. After several tense minutes, the HOA officers finally left, visibly frustrated. Alex exhaled slowly, feeling a mix of relief and satisfaction. The encounter wasn't violent or dramatic, but it was a clear victory. They had faced the intimidation, stayed composed, and protected their home without escalating the situation. Over the next few days, Alex and Mia noticed subtle changes in the neighborhood. Neighbors who had once seemed cautious or indifferent started showing quiet support. Some complimented the couple on their calm handling of the situation. Others admitted they had faced similar intimidation, but had given in because they didn't know how to respond. Seeing Alex and Mia stand their ground inspired a quiet respect among those who had been quietly watching. David continued to offer guidance, helping them refine their strategies. He taught Alex how to anticipate the HOA's tactics, identify patterns, and respond before situations escalated. He also reminded Mia of simple exercises to maintain confidence, such as mindful breathing and verbal rehearsals for unexpected interactions. The couple felt like they were slowly regaining control over their lives. One evening, after a particularly long discussion with David about future scenarios, Alex reflected on how far they had come. He realized that fear had dominated their lives for too long. They had allowed the HOA to dictate how they felt in their own home. But now, armed with knowledge, preparation, and support, they were taking back their power. Mia, sitting beside him, nodded in agreement. "I feel like we're finally on the same side as our home again," she said softly. The journey wasn't easy, and the couple knew there were more challenges ahead. The HOA had proven relentless, and the threat of further harassment was real. But with David's mentorship, Alex and Mia had discovered a new strength. They weren't just reacting anymore. They were responding with strategy, calm, and confidence. As the days turned into weeks, the couple continued practicing, refining their methods, and documenting every interaction. Each small victory, whether it was standing firm during a tense encounter or calmly responding to a threatening letter, built their confidence. Alex felt proud of Mia, who had grown stronger and more self-assured through the process. The experience, though stressful, was also teaching them resilience, patience, and the importance of preparation. By the end of Part 3, Alex and Mia had transformed. What had started as fear and intimidation had become a process of empowerment and strategy. They had learned that courage was not about confrontation, but about preparation, confidence, and knowing how to protect themselves without giving in to fear. Their home, once a place of anxiety, was slowly becoming a sanctuary again, a place where they could feel safe, respected, and in control. Alex and Mia were beginning to feel a sense of control they hadn't experienced in weeks. The constant tension with the HOA had made their home feel like a place of stress, but now, armed with guidance from David and their own careful preparation, they were learning to respond calmly, rather than react out of fear. Their confidence grew with every small victory, and the couple began to notice how much difference a clear plan and steady mindset could make. It started with small encounters that would have previously caused panic. One morning, while Alex was working from home, he noticed a familiar van parked down the street. 2 HOA officers were walking toward the house. In the past, his stomach would have twisted in worry. He might have considered hiding or answering the door nervously, but now he felt prepared. He watched quietly from the window as Mia stepped forward, calm and composed, ready to face them. Mia opened the door just enough to speak, keeping her hands visible and her tone steady. "Good morning. How can I help you?" she asked, her voice polite but firm. The men tried their usual approach, making veiled threats about fines and legal action. Mia responded clearly, stating the facts, asking for documentation, and reminding them of the proper procedures. Alex, standing nearby, watched as the men hesitated, clearly frustrated by her calm authority. They had expected fear or hesitation, not composure and confidence. This encounter became a turning point. Alex realized that they didn't have to be aggressive or hostile to regain control. The HOA's intimidation tactics relied on fear and uncertainty. When the couple showed that they would not react emotionally and had evidence and preparation on their side, the power dynamic shifted. The officers left, defeated in their attempts, and Alex and Mia felt a quiet satisfaction. They were standing firm, protecting their home without compromising their principles. David continued to guide them, helping them anticipate future confrontations and offering strategies for de-escalation. He explained that in many situations the goal wasn't to argue or prove a point. It was to maintain calm, document everything, and assert boundaries. When you remove the emotional reaction, he said, you remove their advantage. They rely on pressure and fear. You give them neither, and they have nothing to hold over you. Alex and Mia began practicing these principles in everyday life. They rehearsed responses to potential scenarios, discussing how to answer aggressive phone calls, how to handle unexpected visits, and how to document interactions efficiently. Mia learned to maintain her calm under pressure, relying on breathing techniques and clear verbal statements. Alex practiced maintaining a firm presence without showing anger, using body language to communicate confidence. The couple also improved their home security. They installed cameras at key points, ensuring they could document any unscheduled visits. They checked locks, lighting, and visibility around the property. Every small adjustment added a layer of security and comfort. They weren't preparing for a confrontation. They were preparing for peace of mind. Neighbors began to notice the change. In Alex and Mia, the couple who had once seemed nervous and anxious now exuded calm and authority. Some residents expressed quiet admiration, noting how composed they were in tense situations. Others began to rethink their own interactions with the HOA, realizing that intimidation could be countered without aggression. This subtle influence created a ripple effect, as more residents felt empowered to stand firm and document issues properly. One particularly tense moment occurred when the HOA sent an official notice, demanding immediate access to the property, claiming there were violations that required inspection. Alex and Mia reviewed the letter carefully. They knew that the HOA did not have legal authority to enter without proper notice, so they prepared a response. Alex documented every point, citing regulations and providing evidence that they had complied with rules. Mia stayed by his side, ready to handle any in-person interactions calmly. When the officers arrived unannounced, they expected resistance or fear. Instead, they were met with calm professionalism. Alex explained their position clearly, referencing documentation and legal guidelines. Mia reinforced the statement, standing firm but respectful. The officers tried to pressure them, but Alex and Mia maintained their composure, showing that intimidation had no effect. After several minutes, the men left, frustrated but powerless. Alex and Mia shared a quiet smile, proud of how far they had come. Throughout this period, Alex and Mia learned that their strength wasn't just in preparation, it was in unity. They supported each other emotionally, discussing each encounter and reinforcing each other's confidence. They celebrated small victories like a letter that was ignored by the HOA or a visit that ended without escalation. Each moment reinforced their belief that fear could be managed with preparation, communication, and calm action. David emphasized that patience was critical. "You won't change them overnight," he explained. "They might continue to test boundaries, but as long as you respond strategically and calmly, their tactics lose effectiveness. It's a long game, not a quick fight." Alex understood that every interaction was a step toward reclaiming their home and their peace of mind. They weren't just defending property. They were defending their sense of safety, dignity, and control over their own lives. Over time, the HOA's tactics began to shift. They realized that Alex and Mia could not be easily intimidated. Attempts to provoke fear or anger failed consistently. The couple's calm and documented approach created a new reality where threats had little impact. Meetings became more civil, letters less aggressive, and the couple found that their home was slowly becoming a place of comfort again. Mia reflected on the process one evening as they reviewed the week's events. "I never thought I'd feel this strong," she said softly. "I used to worry every time the doorbell rang. Now I feel like we can handle anything together." Alex nodded. "We've learned to stand our ground without losing ourselves," he replied. "That's something they can't take away, no matter what they try." The experience taught them more than just how to handle a difficult HOA. It revealed a resilience they didn't know they had, a partnership that could face challenges calmly and intelligently. The fear that had once dominated their days was now replaced with a quiet confidence. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving in the midst of pressure, learning to navigate obstacles with strategy and unity. By the end of this phase, Alex and Mia had fully embraced the principles David had taught them. Preparation, documentation, calm communication, and unity had become their tools. Every interaction with the HOA, no matter how tense, was met with composure. Every letter, every visit was met with strategy. They had turned a situation of intimidation into one of empowerment, proving to themselves and to the neighborhood that fear could be managed with knowledge and confidence. Life wasn't perfect and challenges remained. The HOA could still attempt to assert control, but Alex and Mia had developed the skills to face those challenges without panic or compromise. Their home, once a place of anxiety, was now reclaiming its role as a sanctuary. The journey had strengthened their relationship, their sense of security, and their understanding of what it meant to stand firm without aggression. As the sun set over the neighborhood, Alex and Mia sat together on their porch reflecting on how far they had come. They had turned fear into preparation, intimidation into strategy, and uncertainty into confidence. The journey wasn't over, but they were no longer helpless. The home that had once felt threatened was now a place of control and peace, and the lessons they had learned would stay with them long after the HOA's attempts at intimidation faded. One morning, as the sun rose over the quiet streets, Alex checked the mailbox. To his relief, there was no letter demanding fines or threatening legal action. It was a small moment, but it felt significant. The absence of threats was a sign that the HOA was beginning to realize that intimidation no longer worked on this household. Mia joined him outside, sipping her coffee. She smiled, a genuine expression of ease that had been rare over the past few weeks. It's nice not to wake up worrying today, she said softly. Alex nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. Their home had slowly regained its role as a sanctuary. The couple spent time together without the constant tension of expecting the next confrontation. They tended the garden, fixed small repairs, and enjoyed simple routines that once felt impossible. The joy of ordinary life, once overshadowed by fear, returned in small, meaningful ways. Every day they spent together, calmly facing the world, reinforced their sense of security and partnership. But the HOA wasn't entirely finished. A new letter arrived one afternoon, claiming violations and demanding immediate attention. Alex and Mia reviewed it carefully, as they always did, documenting every detail. Instead of panic, there was now a sense of readiness. They responded professionally, citing records, providing evidence, and clearly stating their compliance. When the HOA representatives visited in person, Alex and Mia remained composed. They did not argue, did not shout, and did not give in to fear. Their calm authority was a silent, powerful defense. Over time, the HOA's tone changed. Meetings became more civil and letters less threatening. The officers seemed frustrated at first, realizing that their usual tactics no longer worked. The couple's ability to respond calmly and strategically had removed the leverage that fear once provided. Neighbors noticed the change as well. Some expressed quiet admiration. Others began to take note of how Alex and Mia handled the situation. A sense of respect began to grow among the community, showing that standing firm with composure could influence more than just one household. Alex and Mia also took time to reflect on the lessons they had learned. They realized that fear, while powerful, could be managed with preparation, knowledge, and unity. They had learned that courage was not about confrontation, but about understanding their rights, being ready, and responding with calm confidence. The experience, though stressful, had strengthened their relationship. They had faced adversity together, and their bond had grown stronger in the process. One afternoon, Alex and Mia invited David over. They shared a quiet moment, reflecting on the journey. "We couldn't have done this without your guidance," Alex said, gratitude clear in his voice. David smiled, shaking his head. "You did all the hard work," he replied. "I just helped you see the strategy." The strength came from both of you working together, staying calm and being prepared. David's mentorship had been invaluable, not just for strategy, but for confidence. He had taught them that preparation, awareness, and documentation were more powerful than fear or aggression. He showed them that even in situations where others tried to intimidate, maintaining control over their own actions and emotions was the most effective defense. Alex and Mia realized that this lesson extended beyond the HOA. They could apply it to any challenge that life might throw at them. The couple's victory wasn't dramatic or public. There were no confrontations, no legal battles won in court. The triumph was quieter, in the reclaiming of peace, confidence, and control. Each calm response, each documented interaction, each confident encounter was a step toward reclaiming their home and their lives. The HOA's attempts at intimidation had gradually lost power, and Alex and Mia had emerged stronger and more self-assured. Neighbors continued to notice. Some approached Alex and Mia privately, asking how they had managed to remain calm and firm. The couple shared advice cautiously, emphasizing preparation, awareness, and documentation rather than confrontation. They wanted others to feel empowered, not emboldened to escalate conflict. The quiet influence they had on the neighborhood helped create a small community of residents who understood that standing firm with calm authority was more effective than giving in to fear. Mia reflected one evening, looking out at their quiet street. "I never thought we'd get here," she said softly. "It felt like the HOA controlled everything. But now I feel like we've taken back our home." Alex nodded. "It wasn't easy and we had to learn a lot," he said. "But fear isn't as powerful as preparation. Knowledge, calmness, and working together, that's what really matters." The couple continued their routines, tending to the house and garden, enjoying meals on the porch, and sharing quiet evenings together. Their home felt alive again, no longer overshadowed by tension or fear. They had learned to navigate challenges without losing their sense of self, and their confidence grew with every peaceful day. Alex and Mia also reflected on the personal growth that came from the experience. They had discovered patience, resilience, and the importance of unity. They had faced a situation that could have been overwhelming, and had found a way to maintain dignity. Composure and control. The lessons were clear. Fear can be managed, intimidation can be countered, and even the most persistent challenges can be faced successfully with preparation and calm strategy. As time went on, the HOA's visits became less frequent and letters less threatening. Alex and Mia understood that the board had realized that their intimidation tactics were no longer effective. The neighborhood returned to a quieter state, with Alex and Mia enjoying a sense of peace they hadn't felt in months. Their home had become a sanctuary once again, a place where they could live without anxiety, confident in their ability to handle whatever came their way. In the final reflection, Alex and Mia realized that the experience had changed them. They were no longer just homeowners. They had become advocates for themselves and for each other. They understood the importance of preparation, strategy, and unity. They knew that fear could never be completely eliminated, but it could be managed, and with knowledge and calm confidence, even the most intimidating challenges could be faced. Their journey with the HOA ended not with confrontation, but with quiet victory. The couple had faced intimidation, documented their interactions, sought guidance, and maintained composure. In doing so, they had reclaimed their home, their confidence, and their sense of safety. Life had returned to a peaceful rhythm, and they had gained skills and lessons that would last far beyond their neighborhood struggles. Alex and Mia's story became a reminder to themselves and to others in their community. Strength is not always loud or aggressive. Sometimes the most powerful victories are quiet, achieved through patience, preparation, and calm determination. Their home, once threatened by fear, had become a place of security, confidence, and peace. A true reflection of the power that comes from facing challenges together and never giving in to intimidation.